And to Nigeria now, where ceasefire talks are reportedly underway between government and Boko Haram militants. That's according to Information Minister Lai Mohammed. Boko Haram has killed thousands of people in the country over the course of an insurgency that's lasted for years now. The minister says the ceasefire talks have been ongoing for some time and that the wider talks began after schoolgirls were kidnapped more than a month ago from the town of Dapchi. Previous attempts at a ceasefire deal had failed, though, due to the splintering of Boko Haram into various factions. Well, let's bring you an update now on that. I'm joined live from Lagos by our correspondent, Deji Badmus. Deji, can you give us more details on these ceasefire talks? We know the government has attempted such talks before, but those have always proved rather challenging.
I mean, you're quite right, Lindy. The government is not giving details of those talks now. As a matter of fact, the government decided to open up following the release of the Dapchi girls when people began questioning how the release was actually organized. And so the government had to open up that it had actually been in talks with Boko Haram and that it was as a result of that talks now that the militant sect now decided to release the girls, and then that the military had to stand down and observe a ceasefire within the period when the girls were released. So I don't think we're going to get much in terms of how those talks are going until some kind of deal is struck. Other than that, the government is not saying much. What we know now is that the government has confirmed that indeed it's in talks with Boko Haram and that it is somewhat optimistic that this round of talks would lead to some kind of permanent resolution of the crisis now. At least that was made clear by the head of the country's secret police. What we do not know at this point is whether the government is talking to the various factions of Boko Haram. We do not know, but certainly the government has confirmed that it's in talk with the sect. But if it's not talking to all the factions, then that would be some form of challenge, no doubt.
And as you say, the government, of course, confirming that these talks are underway and that they're feeling particularly optimistic. But what about the people? Has news of these ceasefire talks brought a new sense of hope among Nigerians?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, you have people are somewhat, I would say, well, you have those who are against any form of ceasefire at all. For instance, the other day, the president announced that the government was willing to offer amnesty to any Boko Haram member who laid down their arms. Of course, you have some people kicking against it. But I would say quite a majority of Nigerians are in support of it. What people actually want to see an end to is this scale of violence that we've had for over close to 10 years now. People just want to see a stop to these. And however the government achieves that, people don't really care. What people want to see is a stop to the violence, a stop to the killings, and that there is some kind of resolution. So if people are happy, people are welcoming it, but of course people are not completely optimistic that the government will be able to pull this through, that Boko Haram, for instance, will be able to keep its own part of the bargain, because we have seen this before where the government said it was in talks with Boko Haram. Eventually, those talks collapsed and the violence just skyrocketed. So while people are cautiously optimistic, I should put it that way, that this time it will work. So it's one thing that people are welcoming, and they really want to see some kind of ceasefire. Not just a ceasefire now, but a permanent ceasefire that will lead to a final resolution of this crisis. Because, to be candid, Lindy, there's just been too much violence, especially in the northeast of Nigeria.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Deji Badmus, joining us there live from Lagos.